The Week 2 NFL slate has already begun with the Thursday night football game between the Chargers and the Chiefs. It was a pretty close game all the way throughout. A couple mistakes at the end by the Chargers and Justin Herbert led to a Chiefs win. Unfortunately, I had the over. It missed by 3 points. I had over 54. It finished up at 51. So my Thursday night football record so far this season is 0-2, but hopefully we can fix that the rest of the way. Just got to remember it's a marathon, not a sprint. It's a 18-week season plus the playoffs, so we'll try and right the ship here with our picks for Sunday. But to kick us off, we've got the Commanders at the Lions. Now, I said it in the video I put out last week. I am a Lions fan, so I watched all of the Lions game. They struggled with the mobile quarterback in Jalen Hurts. I think it opened up a lot of the Eagles' offense having to worry about Hurts. I think in the first half, Jalen Hurts had like 70 yards rushing. So the Lions had to take that into play when it came to defending the Eagles. But I don't think Carson Wentz is nearly as good of a quarterback as Jalen Hurts. I don't think he's nearly as mobile. He can run a little bit, but when he tends to flee the pocket, he makes bad decisions. So I think the Lions should be able to defend the run a bit better now that they don't have to worry about as much of a running quarterback. And I believe I saw on Twitter this week that the Lions are favored to win an NFL game for the first time since November of 2020. So there you go. I think the pick here is the Lions. Again, like I did last week, I'll give you my leans. I'll tell you which ones I'm taking for sure. But as a Lions fan, I don't like to bet on them. But if I had to lean one way or the other, I'd go with the Lions -1. The Jets versus the Browns is one going to be one of my official picks. I did not watch this game last week, but I did follow it a little bit because I had some fantasy players for both the Jets game last week and the Browns game last week between the Browns and Panthers and the Jets and the Ravens. So I kind of have an idea of how each team is. Again, the Jets are with their backup quarterback in Joe Flacco. Joe Flacco is not a slouch in terms of being a backup quarterback, but I just don't think he's got starting capability anymore in the league. So the Browns will also be with their backup quarterback, but I kind of said this last week in the Browns Panthers video. I just think the Browns have a much more talented roster, I should say. The Jets have bright spots here and there, but they're also very young. I like the Browns at home just to grind the majority of the game, run the rock. I don't think the Jets are going to have all that much success in Cleveland. So my first official pick for this week's slate is going to be Cleveland -6.5. The Bucks at the Saints is also going to be one of my picks for this weekend slate. The Bucks look very good against Cowboys, and part of that was because Dak Prescott got hurt in the second half of the game. So the Bucks defense, there wasn't much of a challenge, but again, in all phases of the game, they looked pretty good. They struggled at times. They were able to move the ball, but they couldn't get in the end zone. They struggled in the red zone to convert. I believe they had one touchdown last week. But the Saints struggled against a decent Falcons team. I don't think the public has given the Falcons enough credit. But the Saints aren't a slouch. I just think with Jameis at quarterback, Tom Brady's a much better decision maker. I like the Bucks roster overall. I think the Saints defense is definitely solid. They have a decent receiving core. But I like the Bucks overall, so I'm gonna be taking the Bucks -2.5. Then we have the Panthers at the Giants. This is just going to be a lean for me. I'm not really sure how this game's going to go. The Giants were able to sneak a win last week against Tennessee after being down for, the majority of the game. The Panthers lost a one-score game to the Browns. So it'll be interesting to see how this one pans out. It's a tough game to call, but if I had to pick one or the other, I'd probably go with the Giants minus the 2 points. For the Patriots at the Steelers, the Patriots lost to the Dolphins last week, and the Steelers were able to win an overtime game last week. So both these teams are pretty solid. Um, Again, the Steelers with Mitch at quarterback, it's questionable. The Patriots, Mac Jones played all right last week. I think Miami's going to be really solid this season, so I take the Patriots loss with kind of a grain of salt. Um, I like New England here. I think it'll be a close one again, but if I had to lean one way or the other, I'd go New England -2. The Colts at the Jaguars is another game that I will be adding to my official slate for this weekend. The Colts tied Houston last week in a game where they did not play very well. Offensively, they have all these numbers. They were able to move the ball well, but I think turnovers were an issue, and when they got down to the red zone, they couldn't really convert. The Jaguars also lost a tight one to Washington. Jaguars were up in the fourth quarter, and in the last 10 minutes of the game, were outscored 14-0 to lose 28-22 to Washington. I like the Colts here. I said it last week in my video. I think the Jaguars have a lot of promise this year. They definitely won't be as bad as they were last year, but I think the Colts, after losing or nearly losing to Houston, it's a little bit of a reality check. I think Indy walks into Jacksonville, especially after the way they ended their season last year. They take care of business and they win this game. So I'm going to take Indy -3.5. Then we've got the last 1 o'clock game on the Sunday slate is the Dolphins at the Ravens. Currently, Baltimore's favored by 3.5. Both teams won last week in pretty convincing fashion. The Ravens won 24-9 against the Jets. The Dolphins won 20-7 against New England. This is a tough one, but I kind of just said it in the game I was talking about with New England and Pittsburgh. I think Miami's legit this year. I really like Miami to go into Baltimore and take one from the Ravens. So this will be added to my official picks, and I'm gonna go with Miami minus or Miami plus a 3.5. Yeah, especially with them being underdogs, giving points on the road, I'm gonna take Miami plus 3.5. Then we've got a handful of 4 o'clock games this week. The Falcons and Rams is gonna be the last game I'm adding to my official card. I kind of mentioned it. The Falcons, I think, are better than people give them credit for. I think Mariota adds a little bit of an element to their offense anytime you have a mobile quarterback. It's just one more thing you have to account for defensively, which kind of opens up different areas of the offense. The Rams, on the other hand, I think Stafford's still battling an elbow injury. People have said that he's fine. He said he's fine. I don't exactly believe that after watching him play last Thursday against the Bills. Granted, the Bills are a great football team. They're really legit. But I think Stafford's battling an injury. Rams didn't look great as a whole. And I get they're playing at home, but they're 10-point favorites. I'm gonna have to rock with the Falcons plus 10. They had a big spread last week. They were able to cover. They should have beat the Saints, but I gotta go Falcons plus 10 here. Next up is the Seahawks at the 49ers. The Seahawks were able to win a tight one on Monday night against Denver, and the 49ers lost a crazy weather-filled game against Chicago. The 49ers are -8.5 against Seattle. I don't see why. Trey Lance at quarterback hasn't exactly proven himself. I get the 49ers defensively look pretty good, and they've got some playmakers on offense in Debo, Brandon Ayuk, and a couple others. I mean, Elijah Mitchell's out for a couple weeks with an injury, maybe a month or two. So a hole at running back there. Maybe they use Debo a little bit more, but I, I'm leaning to take Seattle plus 8.5. I think Geno, if he plays like he did on Monday, they'll be all right. And defensively, they look great. So, yeah, my lean for this one's going to be Seattle plus 8.5. Then jumping right into Cincinnati at Dallas. Since he's favored by 7, especially with Dak out, I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on this one. Their receiving core is very depleted. Defensively, they didn't look great. And Zeke is not the Zeke of old. So I get Joe Burrow looked kind of crappy last week with 4 picks, but I like Cincinnati here. I would lean Cincinnati -7. Then we've got the Texans at the Broncos. Again, the Texans tied with the Colts last week. The Broncos lost to Seattle. Denver's favored by 10. I can see why. Denver showed a lot of potential. I mean, against Seattle, they fumbled twice on the 1 yard line. They were able to move the ball up and down the field, as you can kind of tell by the passing, rushing, and receiving numbers there of the leaders in this game. But they just struggled to convert in the red zone. I think them being at home is going to help. Russell Wilson gets to play in front of the Denver crowd for the first time in the regular season. So I'm not adding this one. This one's more of a lean, but I would definitely lean Denver minus the 10. And then the last 4 o'clock game on the Sunday slate is the Cardinals at the Raiders. The Raiders are favored by 5.5. This one's a tough one. I mean, the Cardinals did not look great against the Chiefs last week. The Raiders looked all right against the Chargers. I mean, we saw the Chargers on Thursday night are a legit team. They played the Chiefs really tough. I would lean Raiders minus 5.5, but again, this is a tough one. Definitely not adding this to my official picks. But if I were to give a lean, I'd go with the Raiders minus the 5.5. And then we've got the Sunday night game, and there's 2 Monday night games this week. I'll be coming out with individual videos for those games, giving my preview for those, a little bit more in-depth breakdown, and my picks for those games. But until then, I'll catch you guys later.